Let's take a breath together. So this month we're talking about abundance. And last week we're doing it from the layered approach of the 5-step treatment that we use in Science of Mind. The first step is recognizing what is. And so last week we used the imagery of the ocean, sitting in the middle of the ocean, and you cannot see the shore, and all you see is infinite water. And to imagine creation itself, source itself, substance itself, that it just goes on forever. It is infinite. And today we're looking at you are that. You are that. Now, maybe you are the one person I haven't yet met who isn't challenged by that idea. I know I'm still challenged by that idea. I still periodically, every day, argue for some form of my limitations, right? And I do that because I have a brain, and I lose track of the difference between mind, being consciousness itself, and my brain. Because I was raised in a culture that tells me they're the same. And they're not, unless I believe they are. And then they are. Right? Because the thing of it is, whatever we hold in consciousness becomes true for us. Period. End of discussion. That's the good news and the bad news. The good news is all of that is changeable, right? It's all up to each one of us to choose what we want to believe. The word life, right, seems like a pretty simple word, seems like a pretty obvious word, and yet not so much. In terms of what we believe, what we teach in Science of Mind, there's an either or that we have to look at about how we're embracing and applying meaning to this word life. We can look at it as this physical expression, as this thing that I count by years and birthdays, or I can look beyond that to the infinite and understand that life is synonymous with consciousness, that life is unfolding itself, that the chair you're sitting in is as much life as the person sitting in the chair. It's just life expressing in a different form. So will we lean into the allness, the completeness, the wholeness, the infiniteness of life in our understanding, so that when we talk about experiencing the life we choose, we're choosing more than what our brain can come up with in this physical realm. I've spent the week with another woman in my home with my wife, and she knew nothing about it. Spent the week with Florence Scovel Shinn. And she's brilliant. This is one of those books that's been on my shelf forever, and I finally opened it. And she makes a point to talk about the difference between mind and reasoning. And our reasoning is our limitation, because our reasoning is our brain, and that we cannot be simultaneously in the intuitive and in our reasoning brain. Our reasoning brain is busy trying to figure out the how, the when, the where that things are going to manifest. When we're thinking about prosperity, our intuitive tells us our what. Right? But it doesn't define it. One of the most powerful moments in the movie that we watched on Friday for me was the recognition that if Bill W. had been given the whole picture at the beginning, if he had known how it was all going to play out, he never would have done it. Never would have done it. Right? Because it was hard in spots. It was hard in spots. How many of us can look at our lives and go back in time and pinpoint a decision, a choice that we made that led us to something way more miraculous than we imagined that choice would lead us to? Anybody? Or just me? Okay, good. Just checking. Every once in a while I have something that tells me I'm unique, and I know I'm not. If we will just lean into not having to control, not having to dictate, not being locked into the form that our heart's desire is going to show up as. I had a lovely conversation with a practitioner yesterday, and she met with a client, and afterwards, the client was disgruntled because there were specific details that were left out of the prayer that the client really wanted to hear. And so she left the community. Okay. I personally had that happen. I have done treatment with somebody, and at the end of the treatment, the only remark I got back was, "You forgot to say red." Because red, the condition of red, mattered more than the consciousness of the manifestation. We can easily get stuck in the details. And then what we get is the limitation of our details. Okay. Many of us, I've done it myself, get lost in this idea that we can create whatever we want. No, you can't. That isn't even what Ernest Holmes taught. What he taught was you get what you have the consciousness to create. And sometimes what you want and the consciousness that you're holding are in different camps. Okay? One of the things that Florence Scovel Shinn says, and I'm just going to read this directly. Peace be within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces. In this statement from the 122nd Psalm, we find that peace and prosperity go hand in hand. People who are manifesting the appearance of lack are in a state of fear and confusion. They are not wide awake to their good and miss leads and opportunities. A peaceful person is a wide awake person. They see clearly and act quickly. They never miss a trick. If we are in turmoil, we're in our reasoning mind. That turmoil is coming from thoughts that say it isn't going to work out unless it happens this way. And we argue for our limitations. Truth be told, abundance is everywhere. You can have no money. You could be jobless, homeless, and penniless, and you are living in abundance. You are living in an abundance of poverty. You are living in an abundance of spaciousness. You are living in an abundance of exposure to weather. But we all too often think abundance is only this form, right? We live in a society right now that is expressing an abundance of opinions. Maybe you've noticed. Right? Because abundance is everywhere present. The challenge is getting clarity. Right? I'm recalling a story about the lack of clarity in consciousness of the bear and the hunter. So the hunter's out in the woods, and he's doing his prayer. I really want a bear. I really want to get a bear today. Really want to see a bear. And all of a sudden, bear comes out of the woods, and there he is with the bear. And he lines up his rifle, and he pulls the trigger, and the gun jams. Prayer just shifted. He jiggles with it for a minute. He cannot get the gun unjammed, and now the bear has noticed him and is beginning to charge. And so now the prayer is, get me away from this bear. And he throws the gun at the bear, and he's hauling butt, and the bear's right behind him. And he stumbles over a rock, and he falls, and immediately says, God, I know I've been lousy at this. I know I have not walked what I know I need to walk, and I really need you right now. Please make that bear spiritually awake. And immediately the bear dropped to his knees, inches away from the man, put his front paws together, and said, thank you, God, for the food I'm about to receive. How are you scripting your prayers? How are you scripting your prayers? Because here's the thing. When we really understand, and this is the beauty for me of the 5-step treatment, when we really understand what it is, this infinite everythingness, this nameless substance, this nameless source that just gives of itself to itself, that is amazing if we just stop there. But then when you really let it sink in, when you open yourself to an experience that you are that in form, that is the truth of your being, that is your nature, and the very power that it creates with, you create with. A couple weeks ago, Rev Lanley mentioned moving through life with the idea that everybody can hear your thoughts. Would it clean up your thoughts? Here's the truth. Here's the reality. Law hears every thought. Not only does the activity of creation hear every thought, whether it's verbal or silent, guess what it does? It says, got it. Here you go. Here you go. So perhaps the first step is getting clear about our heart's desire, not our head's desire, not the desire that comes from our reasoning that will eliminate the discomfort that we're experiencing. See, that's lack consciousness. If I'm trying to manifest something to stop something else, I'm operating from lack. That was a hard pill for me to swallow. If I know the truth of my being, if I release my hold on my reasoning thought, and allow my heart, the intuitive me, to inform me what it wants to express, how life wants to express as me. And I know what it is. I know I don't need to worry or figure out a thing. I just need to surrender and pay attention and watch. Because the intuitive, once you get there, the intuitive is going to give you divine nudges that take you to fulfillment. And they're oftentimes not going to make sense to your reasoning mind. They're not going to make sense. So what? How many things have you done from your reasoning mind that made no sense? I mean, come on. Hey, doing things that make no sense, we're kind of used to that. We've built the whole society around it. I ain't judging, I'm just saying. There's a lot of things we do that make no sense. Right? So what if you leaned into making no sense to your reasoning mind in order to live the magnificence that is the infinite life as you? What if you did that? What if you knew, and I posted this on Facebook, what if you knew, what if you had an absolute guarantee that if you simply surrendered, if you simply let go, that everything your heart desires will absolutely 100% be made manifest? What if you had that guarantee? Would you do it? If rewriting the narrative in your mind was all it took to manifest the desires of your heart, would you do it? Or are you more tied to your story? Are you more tied to the control? Let's take this into